What's up, humans? Welcome to the Human Music Podcast. I'm Luke Rain. My co-hosts are Tesco and Rip Kinney, and we're all music producers, artists, and producer coaches. This show is where we discuss all things music production and interview amazing creatives about their origins, their process, and whatever else comes up. This week is episode 136, Torbjorn on planning a tour and an audio-visual set. Fresh off touring the US and Europe with Dark Times Sunshine, Torbjorn is back on the podcast. He's been following up on the goals he shared last time with putting his vocals, rapping, and singing on his music. Now he's ready to go off on his own headline tour. Let's catch up with Tor and talk about putting together his own full visual DJ set, his new favorite lighting and video effects, how he's running his audio visual set when he's on stage, converting MIDI to DMX for on-stage lighting, incorporating live vocals, instruments, turntablism, and video into his live set, making it work financially to have featured artists on tour, networking at shows, how to cold email people for venues versus blogs, not taking things personally, showing love unconditionally, and much, much more. You can get his tour dates and tickets at beatsbytour.com. Follow him at beatsbytour. And he's got this new project. His song Froze is coming out 5/17, and the Nordwest EP is coming out 5/26. So stay tuned for all of that. And yeah, support our sponsors while you're down there. Like I made this Spice It Up Percussion and Foley pack with my boy Porch. You can get that on producerdj.com. It's got over 2,000 percussion loops and one-shots and 50 rack instruments. Can't beat that. Tesco's Patreon. You can go get private coaching and track feedback and much more from our boy Tesco. He's got some really happy students really moving along. And then also Producer Dojo in general. It's, man, where we all got our start, our launch, and it's a great community for producers. And there's all sorts of different levels that tailor to your needs and your budget, from free classes like, you know, this podcast and more. You can get individual workshops or sign up for a whole coaching program like Dojo MAX and get track feedback and lessons. So without further ado, let's get on into this episode with Torbjorn.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesco with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. What's up, humans?
Yeah.
How y'all doing? Hope you're feeling good out there like we are in here in this little box that you call the internets. We are here, happy to be back, and we are here with our homie Torbjorn. What's good? What the fuck? Oh my god, it's a Torbjorn. Big up, Chad.
Big up.
Yeah, shouts to anybody live with us in the Dojo TV chat. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. You know, I know you've been here before. I know you know the drill, but like, just to give the humans that might not have heard of you before, you know, a little rundown on who you are. Like, tell them your superhero origin story. How'd you become the amazing Torbjorn that is about to tour around the country?
All right, so I've been practicing this award speech for a very long time. I like to thank ill.Gates and my mom and God.
Ooh, wow, in that order.
And yeah. My origin story, the abridged version is been playing music since I was very, very young. Orchestral violin player from 4 years old all the way through high school, and picked up guitar when I realized that no girls that I liked thought orchestra was cool at all. Mm-hmm. And they loved me playing in a band. And then I just found the bug. You want to learn how to make an album from there. So that got me into finding a passion for recording arts, and ended up pursuing that all the way through college and professionally. Now here I am back in Tacoma, Washington. Woo! Producer, engineer, own my own studio that I run called Spark Studios in South Tacoma. DJ, producer, singer, rapper, and Tacoma's #1 amateur under 6 foot point guard.
Hey,
It's a pretty good resume.
Yeah,
That's
that last one's
outstanding.
very subjective. It depends who you ask, and I'm probably the only one that thinks I'm #1, but I'm standing by it.
until there's a challenger, we cannot take the title from you legally. By the way, the Tacoma point guard bylaws work.
Yeah.
Shouts out to 253. Shouts out to Washington.
Big ups the South Sound.
Wasn't Isaiah Thomas from somewhere down by you?
Yeah, man, he is Tacoma as well. He actually for a while he was like pulling up at the YMCA and just playing pickup hoops here in Tacoma for a while, which is crazy. So you see him on TV and like, you know, anyone who's a pro athlete, there's like this stature to it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you guys know him, but he's like under 6 foot as well. And so I would just see him at the Y and be like, this guy's like my size, except he can, you know, dunk and was an all-star.
Yeah.
I thought he was under 6 feet. Well, I don't need to amend your title, but
well, he's professional, so he's not eligible. I'm in the amateur category.
Good disclaimer.
Yeah,
Great disclaimer, actually.
Yeah, he would whoop on me for sure.
Do it for the love. So, man. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, man.
Since we last spoke,
we're here to talk about music. So continue your story.
Yeah, the athletics of the creative mind.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Uh-oh.
You gotta do some
Luke.
Did I disappear? What happened?
Luke, are you there?
Check one.
Luke, you went down the wormhole.
Your wormhole.
It looks like you're back.
Check 1 2.
Be back.
Yeah.
Hey. Well, that's fun.
12.
Oh man, I am just like pause. I am on technical difficulty central out here. My Zoom will not recognize my camera, and nothing will recognize my microphone. So I'm just shrugging and rolling with it today. It's that kind of day, you know.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
Sometimes you're out here in these streets trying to be the point guard of your own situation, and you just gotta let your microphone ride the bench, you know?
Yeah, man. Yo, this reminds me of the TikTok video where everyone's on their work Zoom call and pretending to freeze, but there's like something in the frame that's still moving, like a ceiling fan. And he's like, and his boss is like, Jerry, I can see that the fan is still moving. And he's like, and Thomas, you're eating chips. I know you're not frozen.
Classic, man.
All right.
Yeah, dude. So what you been up to musically since the last time we had you on, bro? What's the new news?
So much. I've been successfully pursuing one of my like biggest goals that I've ever wanted to do, which is just to be touring nonstop.
Fuck yeah.
I got to team up with this really cool rap group from Seattle called Dark Time Sunshine.
Oh
We
yeah.
did a national tour together. 2 U.S. tours, I should say, and then we just recently last fall got to tour 5 countries in Europe. In 2 of those tours, the European tour and the second leg of our U.S. tour, I got to was added as the support act as well, which is another big focus of mine. We talked about it a little bit the last time I was on the pod, I think, in the early days of it. But a big goal of mine was to start adding my voice, rapping, and singing into my music as well. And I'm super excited to say that I've like been doing that very successfully as well. And this tour that I'm going on in May, my first headlining tour that I've been on in about a year, I think. 3 of the shows will be my new AV production, which is an hour of all original music with me singing and rapping and video behind me and a light show and dancers and painters on stage. And so I've been like steady producing that ever since I got back from Europe, like basically full-time job amount of hours.
That's badass.
Dude, okay. So there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah, it's a lot, man.
Let's start with the thing that you just said and work backwards. So AV tour. Let's dive into the nuts and bolts. Like, what do you like? What did you produce the visuals in, or like, how did you get them? And like, how do you work that both technically, like, you know, not necessarily where you plug the cables, but what you're using when you're on tour. And then, yeah, we'll start there. We'll just start there.
Yeah. So I'm relatively new to like Adobe Suite world, but I have a couple buddies that are really sick with Premiere that have been giving me some tips. And coming from like a DAW background, being an Ableton guy and a Pro Tools guy and all that stuff, it's not too dissimilar. Obviously, the medium is different. You're working with video instead of audio, so the computer requirements are way different. I don't know if you guys know about like processor needs for video, way higher specs you'll need for that computer than
Incredibly higher.
audio.
Like my machine that never glitches on Ableton gets tanked.
Yeah.
Editing video. Like, yeah, it's brutal.
So early video editing days for me was on my older Mac Pro. My studio, that I do all my client work on, runs on a 2013 Mac Pro that the time that it was new was like souped up with all the like video card and yada yada. Doesn't quite hang these days like it used to. In last October, after saving for a long time, I managed to cop a used M1 Pro laptop, the new,
Sick.
well, not the newest now, but one of the newer Apple silicone chips. And it's crazy, man. You can basically render video in real time. As long as you're not doing heavy processing or too many layers, you can basically drop video clips, edit them, color them, and then play them back without pre-rendering, which is like mind-blowing for me. So
I just went
the process up.
Dude, trust me, I know exactly I just went through the same thing. I did basically a whole visual story thing for the album I just finished, and I literally had to buy, I was like planning to wait to get a new computer, and I had to buy a fucking new computer because mine was tanking so hard. I got some Mac Studio because I'm normally just in this room. And yeah, it went from taking 2 hours and 30 minutes to render like a full draft of the video to 7 minutes.
Yeah, dude.
Like made a huge difference. But like truly that workflow for especially video production, when it's like stuttering and then you got to put it on low res, and then like you just like are fighting against yourself. You have to play the stuff back so many times. When your machine's sucking ass, it really kills you.
Yeah. And you think about this concept of like time is money, right? Obviously, we know Apple products that have a pretty high price tag, especially compared to their like spec equivalent PC counterparts. You can get PCs for way cheaper. But I know there are some workflow things that come with Apple computers, especially when it comes to audio and video, that is a preference for some people. In my mind, wanting to put off buying a new Apple computer for as long as I could because of that price tag. And then exactly like you just said, considering the rendering time, how many hours, probably days of rendering time that I saved by just having a more capable machine was like worth the price. I don't know, twice over, I think.
Yeah. Plus like the frustration and hassle of your computer not working, like takes you out of the creative flow so quickly. And like with video especially, where it's like even more so like glitching out and being shitty, like it's not even just, there's so many things about that. We don't need to talk about computers, this is a music podcast, but it is a huge hack. So besides Premiere, are you using anything else, or is it mostly in Premiere? And then like what clips are you using, like stuff you shot? Or
yeah, so it's a combination of like purchased clips and some like royalty free stuff, and then a lot of original footage. So for this EP, filming, doing my directorial debut, shooting and editing and directing a music video, which is, I've done some little video projects, some like TikTok stuff and Instagram stuff over the years, but nothing this like cinematic and comprehensive and multiple locations and shoots and all this kind of stuff. So every place that we went and shot footage for the video, we grabbed a bunch of B-roll of the locations that we're at. So my idea and concept kind of behind this is I don't have music videos for all of these songs, but the thought is that if each song had a music video, that's like me singing and rapping the parts, or some multimedia, dancers. I like to involve like movement in that art form in a lot of my pieces too. If that is happening on stage, how do we remove that from the video component and just imagine that this music video is like happening on stage in real time, but whoever is the main subject matter or performer is taken out of the video because they're on stage.
yeah, oh, that's brilliant.
So that's like the idea behind the AV stuff. And I think it's ratio of like original footage to stuff that I've either bought or sourced is like my original footage is still in the minority right now, but the goal is for it to eventually, as older pieces get removed from this AV show and newer versions of it, to be completely all original. But remember, early DJ days, when you start out, you don't play all original DJ sets. So I'm kind of like giving myself some grace with that same mentality. It'll be all original eventually.
I love that point, man. Like, because just like DJing, you don't have to do everything yourself, especially when you're starting out. And like with video too, like, and there's so much good free or royalty free or available for purchase and royalty free video out there. It's like, it's basically like, hitting splice. Like, oh, I need a good shaker loop and I don't own that shaker sound. Well, I can just go get the loop. It's cool. Like, so just to remember for our, for audio and for video, it's like, if you need something, it's out there for you. And the listeners can remember that when they're putting together their own things,
Totally. And I'm trying to apply a lot of the same rules that I think our community has in respect to audio to video as well. Splice and a lot of these royalty-free websites are great tools, but very seldom are successful people just grabbing that and dropping it in their song and being done with it. There's a lot of manipulation and layering and all of these things that we do with our musical sound design. I'm doing it with like the visual design as well.
Yeah, making it.
It's after having done literally, it's surprising how similar our workflows on this were too. But after having done this myself as well, you never have enough B-roll.
For sure.
Because you always go and like film the thing you were intending to film, and then you get back and you're like, wait, okay, so most of these clips that like you had in mind for like when you're shooting the video are like the high energy parts or like, the main focus parts. And then like the panning shots to like set it up and stuff, like you never end up with enough of those. And like the amount of like cuts and stuff that you do, like you in the, say for example, the chorus, and it's like a high energy thing, like you're doing like a lot of quick cuts in between stuff. And so you can actually make less footage go further because of the way that you can like interleave different little sections of bits. And like, you don't notice that like that clip 20 seconds later is actually relatively similar to the one before, but it's just like taking a different section of it, and maybe you have a different layer behind it that you're like blending into it that kind of makes it feel different.
Yeah.
You end up getting more out of that footage. And then like the B-roll, you need long extended shots and stuff that's like not quite, you can't chop that stuff up as much. So I was like, damn, I need to remember to always just like shoot like walking out to the spot, like everything else, and like have enough of that too, because you end up, if you don't have enough of either, then you're like struggling to put the pieces together. So to all you at home, if you're ever thinking about doing visuals, like record more B-roll. That's my PSA.
Facts.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Tor, one thing like with production, you go in like phases of like shit you find cool at the moment, or like a technique you're really on, and you're like rinsing that heavy for a while. Do you find like with video, there's anything that like any aesthetic style or any like editing, like effects or anything like that that's been really grabbing your eye lately that you're experimenting with?
Yeah, for sure, man. In early days of video production for me, all stemmed out of live streaming. So I ran a weekly live stream for about 4 years called Base of the Mondays. And when pandemic kind of like lockdown stuff ended, the live stream ended because we all just felt like it was time to move on. But the main tech behind that for us at the time was green screen. And I think it was for a lot of people too. And so I feel like there was so much that you can do with green screen, and like the more weeks that we would film stuff in that up to a green screen and getting VJs involved and stuff really kind of maxed out the potential for us as like this format of filming live DJing or live performing for that matter. And then I took that away and was like, okay, we need to do this out of the studio, or at least we need to do it against a different backdrop or something that's more the actual lighting that's present in the room is like what's driving the scene and driving the emotion. So I dived into a little bit of like cinematic history or like cinematic theory, and lighting design is something that I'm really looking into and trying to learn as much as I can, because I found it really inspiring how the different fundamentals of single light, single source studio lighting, like you in a space with one lighting source, affects the footage emotionally and contextually. And so I'll give you an example. The lighting that I use a lot in the music video that I'm producing right now is a single source lighting that's like off to the side in 45 degrees, and then you shoot on the dark side of the subject's, like the face, for example. And it's called Rembrandt lighting. And the distinctive factor is that your nose casts this shadow on the other side of your face, and there's one small triangle of light visible on your cheek. They call it Rembrandt lighting because Rembrandt, the famous painter, painted a lot of his like heroic subjects in this lighting. And so it's known, like in lighting and in cinema theory, that a character that would have this kind of light would be like a heroic or a main character type of person. Inversely, split lighting, where one side of your face is totally dark and the other side of your face is totally light, is usually used contextually to portray a villain. So I was watching The Last of Us. You guys seen this show, HBO Max?
Heard of it.
I haven't watched it yet.
It's like a post-apocalyptic zombie kind of thing, and same lead male actor as the Mandalorian. Awesome actor. Anyway, so after studying this lighting, I was watching this scene. They introduced this character that is being asked by the military, like, what should we do about this zombie outbreak? You know nothing about this character except that she's filmed with split lighting. And so I knew from context, I was like, she's about to do some dark shit. Like, she's about to say that they should murder everybody or something. And then her main line in the scene is, she's like, you should bomb the city. And you're like, oh shit, I knew it, because they filmed her with that lighting. Like, that's how directors can convey that emotion before they reveal like what's happening with the character. So all of that to say that I'm just like super inspired by single source lighting and what that tells your audience before the scene tells the audience what's happening.
Interesting. So are those two like the primary ones, or do you have other examples of like...
Those are the two that I've been using the most, that I've been the most inspired by. But I think there's probably about like 7 or 8 ones that they would like teach you in film school. I'm too novice still to have memorized them all off the top of my head. But those two you'll see in my upcoming music video that portrayed the hero character and the villain character.
Super cool. And from the editing side, has there been any like types of like cuts or transitions or stuff like that you've been liking?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of, I've been leaning into a lot of very like unnatural, stuttery edits and kind of glitchy edits. And I think that in most cinema, that like traditional filmmaking or whatever, that's probably like a very jarring style to use. But given the context of electronic music, and there's so much like unnatural sounds happening in the song, I feel like it's appropriate, and that I'm getting away with something that, I don't know, maybe like a more traditional director would be like, no, we don't do that.
That's so I couldn't agree more with that. Like, literally, I have found like most transitions or transition effects to be just like out of place or kind of cheesy, and I have been shocked how far you can get with like literally like having a layer come in for like 2 frames on the end of the previous clip and like 2 frames at the start of the next clip. And if it's just some like VHS, like white noise, like screen or something simple, and you just layer it in so it's like pss, and then like comes out, like it feels so natural, and it works really well with, like you said, the medium of electronic music, where it's more like you can get away with jarry shit because of the context, but like and it's so easy too.
Yeah,
like you don't have to overdo it. You don't have to search for the right transition. You literally can just take something that you've already used and like just like layer just a couple frames, and it'll feel supernatural.
Yeah, I did myself a favor years ago and just got this like whole pack of those type of glitchy transitions. You know, it had like the VHS ones and the thing where like the screen stutters and moves a little bit, like just a bunch of really simple stuff like that, and some more complicated stuff that's like so easy to like make all my cuts and be like, oh, this one needs a little bloop. Okay, cool. And this one needs a little plop.
Yeah. It's like akin to having like a dope sample pack in like a certain style, right? Or like some audio plugins that you lean on.
Yeah.
like what's like the dub siren sound that like every dubstep and every drum and bass producer uses. There's like video equivalents to those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to your point, Evan, I think that there is like there's a very special relationship between audio and visual, where something that would be very unnerving visually, if paired with the right audio, seems totally appropriate, and vice versa. I don't know if you guys have ever watched these like YouTube videos where they'll like mute the audio or mute the laugh tracks from sitcoms, or, you know, different things like that, where they kind of separate that connection. And you can all of a sudden see that like this chase scene in Bourne Identity is like really slow and boring, and they're not driving fast at all. As soon as you take all the engine noises out, you're like, they're going like 10 miles an hour. This is not a very like riveting chase scene, but because those sound effects are there, it totally sells it.
Yeah. There's another one that I think is fucking hilarious, which is like you say you got like a Diplo track and there's like twerking and shit, except you take the music out and then you just leave the original audio from the video shoot, and it's just like shoes squeaking and shit, and then it's like awkward heavy breathing, and it's like,
yeah, hell yeah,
this is the funniest shit ever. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, yeah, right. So I wanted to ask you about like the implementation of those visuals on tour. Have you had a chance to test it out yet, or like set the system up like in different places, or are we not there yet?
I have run, I'm basically doing a version 2 of a very similar tech that I've run with my rap group Grandmasters for the last couple years, but now upgrading it with some like time-coded lighting, DMX controls, and just adding some things that I've like learned over the years. But basically it's like I've split the show into 3 different acts or scenes or whatever. So it's like nonstop music for about 24 minutes. And then there is a transition where it's like not about the music for about 2 minutes. Then the second act, and then there's like an instrumental solo in this show where Rachel, who is a Nordic fiddler, has like a solo as part of the show. And then the new EP, which is like very Nordic themed in all of the samples and stuff, plays after that solo. So I'm basically sequencing the audio in Ableton. I don't know if you guys have ever done like pre-sequenced mixes, like DJ sets, but you're not really DJing them live for like radio or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Basically like sequencing a DJ set together in Ableton. Click tracks and cue tracks in the audio that are going out of separate channels just to an in-ear monitor mix, so that our performers can get cued into, in this hour-long thing where I'm on stage the whole time. All the other performers can be like, hey, so-and-so, you're on deck. And okay, verse 1, 2, 3, 4, and like things like that just like help make sure that we don't fuck the show up, because I'm on stage performing and can't conduct like I would be able to if I was like only DJing or whatever. And then once all the audio is sequenced, I'm basically dumping that into Premiere and then editing the whole show over the pre-sequenced audio in 3 different acts, and then rendering those 3 different video files and then dumping them back into Ableton, and outputting video from Ableton, and then outputting multi-track audio to either in-ear mixes or to the front of house engineer who's like mixing the show.
Yeah. So how do you sequence the DMX stuff? Is that at Ableton too, or? Yeah.
So this is a new thing for me that I have got. I've gotten it to work and I've tested it, but I haven't actually programmed all the lights yet. That starts this week because I just finished. I just rendered the final videos for the visuals, which I'm super stoked about. But yeah, thanks, man. It was literally 2 months of editing an hour-long movie, pretty much. But I found out about a couple different apps that will either work standalone and will talk to Ableton via like SMPTE or MTC MIDI timecode. But the one that I ended up going with is called Beam. And the reason that I went with this app called Beam is because all the app does is it converts MIDI data to DMX data. Currently, I don't speak DMX very well, but I speak MIDI very well. So they have created this kind of like through app that will output to, I don't have it with me, but output to like a single universe USB DMX interface. USB on one side goes to the computer, the other end outputs 5-pin DMX and starts going through the lighting chain. And then it's just this tiny little app that goes like, what lights do you have and what are their channel lists? I don't know what you guys know about DMX, but there's like a little bit of light programming. A quick forum dig taught me, and some YouTube tutorials taught me everything I needed to know. And then on the Ableton side, Beam has created Max for Live devices. And so you can just write the automation and your lighting commands as MIDI clips and press play, and then it translates everything. And as long as you did your light patching correct, then the lights will just do what you're asking them to do in the Max for Live app.
So does that look like basically like a MIDI channel where if you like wanted a strobe, you would put like a 16th note like MIDI pattern on like C0 and you programmed C0 to operate your strobe light and it's like exactly. Is that close? Okay.
So there's three different things that it'll do. It'll receive note messages and then you can tell it what that note message is going to do. More often than not, that's like the light turns on when it gets a MIDI on message or a note on message, and it turns off when it gets a note off message. Just like a synthesizer would. You press the key, it starts making noise. You let go of the key, it stops. More likely than not, you're going to attach that to lighting intensity because that's like makes the most sense. Then it also has rotary controllers in the Max for Live device, and then those are variable what you control. So depending on the light, it might be a light that has a color wheel, so it changes color. It might be a light that has gobos, so it has like a shape or kind of like effect of the light that changes as you're scrolling through this rotary controller. Pan and tilts, like how the light is moving left, right, up and down, all these kind of things. And just like any other M4L Max for Live device, you're just right clicking, show automation in new lane, and then you're getting a left, right, up and down automation lane, and you can create your controls from there.
Sick. So
yeah.
That sounds A, fun, B, super learning intensive. Like, of course, there's going to be so many little pitfalls and tricks that you got to learn. It's commendable that you're putting that like level of detail into this stuff. I mean, I suppose it is your thing, right? So like you're going to make it dialed. But that's super cool.
Well, man, I feel really fortunate to be inspired by some like really dope artists who I've seen live. The first person that and that's kind of where my motivation to like go this extra mile or all these extra miles is coming from. I remember seeing Zoo in Seattle at the Paramount Theater, and he had like this whole AV experience, and he was singing and doing like the live vocal aspect of his music live. And then piano and like the instruments that he was playing live on stage had been removed from the mix. And I was always really impressed by that because not only is like the production and just the recordings are really phenomenal. I think he's a really, really talented artist, but actually being able to do that on stage and I think more people can manipulate themselves in a studio setting to make it sound that way than can actually do that on stage. So I was really impressed that he could do that. He involved other musicians, the video backdrop behind him, and kind of just the whole like concept that he also had like different segments that were kind of thematic in terms of what genres of music he was playing in like the first part of the show, the middle part of the show, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a big influence. And Zoo is really cool. I admittedly don't like actively listen to him a lot, but when I saw Ivy Lab Infinite Falling Ground tour added the AV aspect to what they're doing, I very actively listen to Ivy Lab all the time. I think they're like one of the best producer duos, formerly trios, Rip to Halogenics, wherever he went off to, making his money elsewhere. But anyways, they're a huge inspiration. And so when I saw them do it, and more people were kind of saying, like producers kind of in our community were saying like, yeah, I'm doing this AV show. And then that turned into people just saying, yeah, I'm doing a show. And the visual part, I feel like is starting to become a standard. I had always had this idea of like, it would be really cool to do this. And then it hit me really hard the last 2 years that I was like, I think that I can't afford not to do this. Is kind of where my mentality went. Totally. And so then if that's the standard music and video, then like, well, how do I get an edge on top of that? It's like, well, I can sing and rap live pretty well. I've been in a couple hip hop groups and have some skills there. I play a lot of instruments, and the turntablism thing has been a part of my DJ set. So trying to incorporate that. And a lot of my friends are talented musicians. I have a lot of really cool featured artists on my tracks. So Nuris and Petru are two guys that I've worked with a lot. They're from the island of Maui in Hawaii. So they're flying out and doing the majority of the tour dates with me so that we can do our full songs with their verses live. And just, I don't know, my kind of mindset is like, if this is not that it will be the last time that I ever do this, but if it was the last time that I ever did this, I would just want to have done everything I possibly could have and make it as dope as possible. And just want to try to bring that energy to my tours as much as I can.
Totally.
Absolutely.
So like part of, I mean, the ethos of this podcast is to dive into some of the nitty gritty of like the hows and whys for people that want to, like, you know, do the things that you're doing. So like, for instance, one question that comes to mind in that regard for like bringing featured artists on tour with you, like, are they paying for their own flights to come along? Does the show like you know, make X amount of money and then like you've deemed it worth it to like pay that much to get them out? Like what if you're comfortable talking about it, like what are the nuts and bolts about something like that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple different schools of thought here, because I think there is definitely a professional standard on like the audio engineering side of what I do. I've been fortunate to been able to hold my position to that professional standard of whoever hires you should pay for your travel to wherever you're working, and should pay your rate, and should pay your per diem, and should pay your lodging. Like, this is, if you're working for any artist that is like at this, you know, highest professional level, or any venue or any tour that's at this highest professional venue, that's typically the standard. As a touring sound engineer, which I don't tour as a sound engineer as much as I used to, but when I was doing that, I learned through the years of doing that that's like the top people, not even the top people, just the people that are professional in that world. That's the standard. And it's the same for artists. You should, in theory, fly whoever you're touring with. If they're your support act, you should be in charge of their travel, lodging, per diem, blah, 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 blah. Then there's the reality. We're all independent artists. Many of us on this podcast, I guess. Well, no, I think we all do this full time. But regardless, not everybody listening does this full time. So there's a reality of like the money doesn't always add up to do that. We know that flights are maybe not as bad as they were a year ago, but still, even domestically, you know, in the hundreds of dollars to fly someone from Hawaii to mainland America. So there's a couple different ways that I have gone about doing this. Petru is funding some of his own trip because he was added to this tour. No, I don't want to say as an afterthought, because we love him a lot and we definitely want him to be here and are stoked that you're here. But he was not part of the original plan. So one thing that I do with all of my as much as I can of my like music expenses and my studio business expenses is I try to use an airline card or some credit card that gives you points. So a lot of times as like this mid-tier independent artist, I'm not even, as an artist, not even able to hold other promoters or other people up to this standard. I am having to figure out how to get myself to an opportunity that has, you know, will give me growth or whatever. So that's one way that I've been able to offset that cost. And that's how I'm flying Nuris out, is off of airline points from all my music gear, all of my apartment rent, a lot of my studio expenses, and whatever I can put on that credit card to get those points, to get free tickets out of it, to get free airline tickets out of it specifically. That is like one of the hacks. Comes with a pitfall of like, am admittedly like paying a little interest on this credit card from like not making all the payments maybe that I should have made when I should have made them. But, you know, I'll just be honest and transparent. Credit cards are hard. And I'm not out here making a shit ton of money as a full-time musician. I'm just making enough. to keep the wheels turning, and not starving by any means, but there's good months and there's bad months. We're coming out of the winter. I'm sure we can all identify with that. Like, the famine season is over. Hopefully the feast is ahead of us now. So
Yeah.
On that note, do you have any exciting summer plans or anything that you're looking forward to? I know obviously working on the show is going to take up a lot of your time, but in terms of anything that you're stoked about, anything that's coming up, any type of event, doesn't even necessarily need to be your type of show, but
I have a couple festival appearances that I'm super excited about. The annual camp out in Vernonia, I always pronounce it wrong, in Northern Oregon, annual camp out festival. I'll be appearing at Bigfoot Camp Out, which is a small festival gathering in Washington. And the one that I'm most excited about is Ohm on the Range Festival, which is in its second year. And the reason I'm the most excited about this is because it's a friend that I had been disconnected with from a long time that runs this festival. And through another mutual friend of ours, I got brought back in as kind of like an advisor role and ended up getting booked to play the festival. And then was very pleasantly surprised when I got there to see how much they're incorporating both live hip hop and bass music kind of to the overlapping audience of those two things. And that's been like, we talked about this last time I was on the podcast. That's been something that I'm really trying to push as an artist and as like a community member, is getting all of my friends that I work with in the rap scene and all my friends that I work together in the bass scene, getting them on the same stages or on the same tracks or like at least in the same room together. And then eventually with my own music, and I think that I'm doing this more and more every year, I want to curate an event for my own tours and my own music that just like authentically brings both of those people under one roof, and has them being not two different scenes, but just one scene. Because I think that more and more people now than ever are into like lots of different types of music. And I don't think that music genres are as cliquey as they maybe were when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. What was the one that you, Vernonia, the one that you can't get right? In Northern Oregon? Where's it at?
Let me look this up. It's called the Annual Camp Out Festival.
It's a little bit west
it's
of Portland.
Veronia.
It's a little bit west of Portland. I was looking this up recently. It looks dope.
Vernonia.
Okay.
Vernonia.
The land of
cool
Vernon.
You played there before?
I got shoved on stage during back-to-back last year. I attended as stylist +1. I've been working a little bit on the side for Sleeveless Records this last year, and came down to just grab some photos. He was one of the headliners, just to grab some social media content for him and some photos and videos and stuff. And then two of our label mates had a back-to-back in addition to their individual sets. And Stylist was like, well, you're not playing, and they already got sets, so go get on stage, like go crash their set and go play some music with them. I was like, nah, that seems kind of presumptuous that's okay. And then one of the guys turned around and was like, what are you waiting for? Get up here. So I was like, all right.
Awesome.
That's amazing. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Shams. I'm not playing, but I got to go for my first time last summer. I can't believe that I had never been to Shambhala before, but
it's the best.
Yeah. It's like everything that I loved about the years that I went to Burning Man, like minus the horrific, murderous conditions of the desert.
Right? It's like it's so in this pleasant. Nice forested valley by a river on a farm. Yeah, it's the place to be.
Yeah. Evan, you got a big ass shout out on Village Stage when ill.Gates was playing, man. That was really cool. He was like, shout out my guy Rip Penny. And I was like, oh, felt like Will Ferrell and Elf. I was like, I know him.
Yeah, and he played a record off the new album. That was fucking sick. And he played the collab that we did too.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Dude, that track's insane.
That was a trip. Yeah, no, Shambhala is like the only festival I'll go to for the rest of my life until I'm booted out or dead. Like Straight up. It's just the fucking best. I've been for 7 years straight. This is the first year that I'm not able to go because of friend's wedding. Type F in the chat.
Time to dump your friend, homie.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Well, make them get married. Make them get married on the farm.
bring
Sounds
all
like it's
your
too late
bring all
for
your
all of these things.
grandparents out. Oh shit, grandma's on ketamine again.
I wish in so many forms that things had worked out differently. Like it was we don't need to talk about me missing Shambhala, but
Yeah.
I'm
We
sorry
can talk
to hear
about
that.
we
What
can
have you
talk about
missed?
the amazing lineup that you're missing.
didn't even look at it, can't look at it, not gonna look at it. Let's not talk about it. I hate all of the missing that things. I'll see you guys at the farm next year.
Next
I'll look
year,
forward to it,
woo! 2024.
Yeah.
Everybody buy your tickets as soon as they're available, so you can come party at Rip Kenny's triumphant return to the farm.
Yeah.
As if anyone cared that much, but yeah, for sure. Let's do
We
it.
care, Evan.
Let's do it.
I want to party there with
Yeah.
you again.
For sure.
Dude, you know what blew me away is they do like on the app they'll before the festival is over they'll start selling tickets for next year's festival, and if you're at the festival and you have the app you get like early access or something like that. What blew me away is like on Monday morning we're like packing up and getting to ready to leave, and I got this notification. They're like, early bird tickets are 60% sold out. And I was like, we're still here. Like they go, I didn't realize how fast they go. Cause it's a big festival, like 12,000 people fit on the property or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what I didn't know. Like the following and anyways, I'm sorry.
man.
You just said you want to stop talking about it.
No, I love talking about Shambhala. We just don't need to talk about all the conditions that preclude me from going this year.
All right.
I mean, that
But
does
let's
make
talk-
sense though. Like having like everybody so stoked on this high from this amazing weekend. Like, why wouldn't you? Why would you wait 8
Yeah.
months to start selling tickets when everybody forgot how much fun they had? You know,
Yeah.
like I've seen other things like Envision Festival in Costa Rica. You know, just happened like a month ago, and yeah, they're already trying to get everybody on the tickets just the same, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, if you know you're going to do it next year, just start selling ASAP. Why wait?
Yeah. Well, I also am like relatively new, probably the like youngest to like festival lifestyle culture of anyone in the room here. But I learned like through going to the Burn for a couple years that there's like a whole community of people that like the turning of the calendar year is not how they mark their year. It's like these events that they go to with their friends and family and stuff every year is like how they mark the passing of time. And that was like a new concept. At students, September is that for a lot of students and teachers and stuff. You know, for everyone else, it's like January, or depending on what country and culture you're from, your New Year is like a different month of the year. But there's like a lot of people, you know, burners like late August, early September is the turning of the year for you. Or like for people who go to Shams every year, it's like that is their, that's like just how their cycle starts over again every year. And that's like an interesting and cool concept to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you do feel a sense of refreshment after coming back from Shams, like both creatively and like just spirit, soul wise. Like you really do just feel like ready to tackle more, or at least I do. I don't know, something about the certain conditions that exist around going to Shams always end up with some sort of nice, like I'm not going to say transformative, but like you like remove so many of your daily like pitfalls, maybe pitfalls, I don't know if that's the right word, but like so much removed from your normal circuit pathways.
Yeah, it's a pattern
And you get
for sure.
Yeah, it's a pattern pattern interrupt. Thank you.
Pattern
And
disintegrator.
you're listening to all this great music and you're there with your friends. Pattern disintegrator, correct. And whatever else
Like
happens
that.
there, it's just a nice thing. It's just a nice thing. You end up feeling like ready for more shit.
Yeah.
Ready for more shit, such as a tour where you're doing all of the things. Is there anything else like exciting about the tour coming up that you'd want to talk about? Or one thing that I'm curious about is how do you deal with promoters and like venues setting all this stuff up? Like, are there any things you've learned from that would be cool to share?
Yeah, man. Well, I'm really fortunate that the last couple tours that I went on in hip hop world were me DJing for a group that had an agent and guys that had been touring for a long, long time. So I kind of got to jump in this scenario of like these veterans that were just doing things that were sort of old hat for them. And so a lot of the guesswork that I had kind of been taking stabs at in my like my own personal, very modest touring career prior to that, I got to just like see how it works, see how people interact with promoters, see the effort that they put into exchanging contact info with and making connections with and building relationships with these people that they only have like a few short hours every cycle to connect with in that way. And so I learned through that that kind of my old way of like introversion and like set up my gear and get ready for the show and kind of hang out in the green room because like anxiety has been a problem for me in the past. Like having the right motivation to overcome those things makes them not seem not very problematic, or maybe not the hurdle that they seem to be if you have the right motivation. So like every artist that we played with, trying to have a conversation about music and about just like regular life, trying to exchange contact info or Instagram tags with all these people, talking to the promoter, not just about like, how can we work together again, but more on some like, tell me about like how your experience is, and asking some questions that are more just like interested in getting to know this person and then figuring out like what relationship needs to or can happen after that. And so I've been very like, in the past, I've been very like business minded first, like, okay, I have a show in San Francisco and I'm only going to be here for like 12 hours. So time to like capitalize on like every relationship and make it better for the next time that I'm in San Francisco. And I've just learned through trial and error that that's like not the way. And all the people that have come back around and been willing to help me out were just all the people that I was like really nice to and spent quality time with and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah,
so that was like a big lesson.
Yes, I want to touch on that real quick and just like underline that, like the people that when you come back around, like remember and care are the ones that you spent quality time with, real human time. Like I've seen people at business events, networking events, just like business card. Like nobody has a connection to that card though. They have your phone number, but not your humanity. Yeah. There's no reason to follow up with that. But like, you know, when you spend that quality time, that real time, by the end of it, they're like, yo, let me make sure to put your number in my phone because you're awesome. And I want to see you when you're back in town.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think if you're like a real estate agent or like work in the stock market or some industry that is like highly competitive like that, I think that there is a place for that. But we're all just like weird creative people, man. Like we just are here because we don't want a real job or because we're like inspired to be creative weirdos. And so I think that you just got to like embrace your inner creative or outer creative weirdo and fly that flag with everyone that you meet. And you probably will make a lot more friends that way than handing out business cards.
Learn how to make your inner creative weirdo an outer creative weirdo.
Yeah, that might be the quote of the day.
Bring it out of the shell, baby.
But the other thing that that I learned working with those guys that have been touring a lot longer than me, that brought me on for a couple of their tours, is that they spend a lot of their time when they're not doing their own career pursuits. They spend a lot of their time just giving back to people unconditionally. I'll give you an example. We worked with a promoter in Vienna, this guy named Chris, who's super, super nice. And we didn't know at the time, he was visiting the States for a while, like seeing some family and just doing like a little bit of tourism. I don't think we knew at the time that we were going to work on some shows with him or whatever. But just while he was in town, Michael, the MC of the group that I toured with, he took his whole week off when homie was in town and drove him to do everything that he wanted to do and out to Leavenworth to make fun of things that were like not really Austrian, but kind of seemed like it, and you know, just doing all this cool stuff just because that's what you do for your homies, and it was like very sincere and very unconditional, and then when it came time for us to be in Austria and like play some shows out there, he ended up being like the most valuable person that we knew, and ended up going the extra mile, helping with like hotel reservations and showing us like some cool tourist stuff that we want to do, helping us with public transportation and all of this kind of stuff. And it wasn't, I could see now in hindsight that it was very like, it was very like equal give and take, but it definitely was like, didn't come from a place of being tit for tat in that way. It just came from a place of like, here's a cool dude, and so we're going to be like cool to this person. And then those things, like my mom always said, like those things will come back to you in ways that you don't necessarily expect. So just give them unconditionally.
Amen.
I love that.
Man, that's amazing. That's like such a crazy realization I've had too, the longer that we're in it, is just like, aside from like making it quote unquote or whatever the original goal is of I'm going to be this sick artist and I'm going to be the best and the coolest, you realize that like really it's the friends you made along the way. As cheesy as that is, like all the people you cross paths with that you never otherwise would have, from parts of the world that you might have never went to in your life, like all of the connections you make are just through this like common shared interest of music. And it's cool, like I don't know, sometimes seeing people who don't do music, they don't have those same experiences, and I realize it's like it's not that common to like have friends in the States or Europe or whatever that are super talented at music that you could just casually kick it with. So that's super cool, man. That sounds like an amazing time.
What you just said reminded me of a lyric from the closing song in my show, and the lyric is somehow along the way you start learning all the best stories happened mid-journey. I too keep my eyes on the prize to earn it.
Woo.
And it's about exactly what you're saying. Like,
yeah, I love that.
The gold at the end of the rainbow is like what keeps us on the path, maybe, but it is the path itself that is like the most rewarding.
The path is a whole ass rainbow.
Yeah, dude. For real.
Like, oh yeah, look at where I am. This amazing journey.
Profound, dude.
Hey man, put a metaphor in front of me, I'll always sprinkle on it.
For sure.
Yeah, man. So I want to hear like where you're actually going on this tour. When are you gonna be there? Tell the people. Tell me so I can get a ticket. I want to see what this looks like.
West Coast dates. We got 11 shows. We're going Spokane, Bellingham, Bend, Oregon.
Hey!
Are you in Bend?
Yeah, bro. You got to come see me.
Let's go. I didn't realize you were in Bend.
Yeah.
We're playing the Capitol with Basement and Mitch, please.
Please. What day? I will be there.
19th of May.
Perfect.
And then we go from Bend to Portland, Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, Arcata.
Love Arcata, dude.
Yeah, the Womp guys are putting us on. We're super stoked. Shadow Tricks Music and Womp Production, longtime friends of ours. And then due to a weird scheduling snafu, we're driving back to Tacoma, Washington from Arcata for our hometown headlining show.
That's a haul and a half.
Yeah, for real. Well, and the show after that is in Sacramento, so we're not stoked about the routing.
Tour life.
The show in Tacoma was like that important to us, and the day that they gave us, and the venue, and like all these other things that we were like, we're just gonna have to eat the extra travel costs on that because because that's when everyone is available to do the like full production, the biggest version of the AV show with all the featured artists, musicians, vocalists, dancers, painters. That's when our lighting designer was available to do the extra lighting programming that's happening. That's when our front of house engineer was available. And
making it happen.
The venue was available on a Friday.
So. Alma Mater?
It's at they just call it Alma now.
Alma,
but it was called Alma Mater for a long time. And we're doing like a multicam video and multi-track audio of the whole show. So some of the live footage will get released on YouTube and Instagram. We may do like a live restream of it at some point or whatever. But that's honestly, that's going to be the biggest show of the whole tour, when everyone involved in the whole show is there and we're doing it live. We're doing it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
And then the next day we have a long ass drive down to Sacramento, playing with the Cymatics bass guys. We're playing in Los Angeles for Bass Waffles. We're joining the Trendsetters guys in Santa Cruz, playing at a club called Motive, which is where Santa Cruz Music Festival used to be. Really, really cool nightclub. I heard they just got CDJ 3000, so we're stoked about that too. And then we have a long ass drive straight up back to Seattle to play with Killsmith and Conrank.
Hey, sick, dude.
Yeah, so the route's kind of wild, but it's worth it. The shows are going to be dope, and the shows that we're not headlining, we're supporting like super dope artists. Like the 13th in Spokane is the tour kickoff, and we're main support for Mr. Bill. So you can't be mad at that.
That's what's up.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, and beatsbytour.com, you can find tickets and all the event info there if you want to come out to any of the shows.
Yeah, buddy. That's amazing, dude. Yeah, that's going to be so fun. I'm so glad that that you're going to get like this giant, like, you're going to get this like giant like recording of the Hometown Tacoma show too, man. That's super sick, man. Like really putting it on for your hometown. I love that, bro. And that is a great venue. It slaps in there. So highly recommend people getting there.
Yeah, big Meyer sound, like line array Meyer system and Meyer subs, and they built the room around, like acoustically around the stage, so it sounds like really, really phenomenal in there. And kind of the other aspect of doing this multicam video and audio recording of it is the next big thing for me as a soloist is like getting some team behind me, especially when it comes to touring. Like, this has been the most labor-intensive pursuit of my whole career. Not just producing this whole show, which is like hours and hours of editing and mixing and rehearsals and all of this stuff. That I gladly do that work, because once you build the show, once you build that 60-minute show, you're really just revising it from then on out. Like if I write a new song, I don't have to edit a whole new show. I just have to edit one new song and either add to it or remove something else to put it in there. So in theory, this will be like the biggest amount of work that I do on this show for a very, very long time. But like the booking and the promo and a lot of the like managerial process on top of that has been like pretty draining. And if I'm just totally honest, it's like not what I got into this to do, but it is like a necessary thing in order to put this show in front of people. Booking 11 shows, I'm sure you guys know just some quick numbers. I sent probably like 200 emails out to get those 11 shows. You know what I mean? A lot of people said no, or the majority of them just didn't respond. And so it can be really discouraging at times getting so much rejection or literally just getting no response at all. But that's kind of how it is. And so
it's good. It's good practice as a creative, isn't it? You gotta get okay hearing them no's, man.
You definitely do. Yeah, you definitely. And something that we've talked about at length, Luke, is you got to like separate your like personal connections with people to like how they're going to react to you or interact with you professionally. That's been like another thing that has been a huge hurdle, is to not take that stuff personally. Because everyone that I reached out to, I know them because, like we talked about before, I have made a friendly connection with them over the years. Just because they don't want to work with me or don't have an opportunity for me has nothing to do with how they feel about me personally. Like personal and professional are two very different things. And the sooner that you can start to separate those things, at least for the sake of your own emotions, the better.
Amen.
Were those 200 emails to like 200 people you knew, or were some of them cold, or?
It's probably about 60-40, like 60% cold calls, 40% people that I knew or had worked with in the past.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And like the success rate with the people you knew, was that like considerably higher, or is it more to do with like just the dates and the availability, or?
I would say that the success rate is considerably higher because I know how to have an open dialogue with those people.
Yeah.
Info at such and such venue.com is like, you're really taking a shot in the dark. And I would say, in my experience, those cold call approaches, like emailing someone at an email address like that, is probably like a 1% success rate. Maybe even like a 1 to 2% like response rate. Like it's very, very low. And I've just learned to like be okay with that.
It's pretty easy to write an email, luckily. It costs nothing to send, a little bit of time to write, especially if you're like writing basically the same email to everybody. It's like, hey, what's up? This is me. Copy paste. I want this date. Copy paste whatever else you need to give them, right? Like, so it's, I think just for people looking at that, like, oh my God, that's so much work, maybe I won't do it. Just remember, like, you can send 200 emails, but you get one back. That's like an actual win. Like that. Yeah. That more than pays for your time of having sent out all the emails.
And it absolutely does. And I think to that point, there's two different types of message that I would send out depending on like what you're reaching out to. Because I talked about like booking my own shows for this tour and doing my own like PR and promotion for this tour. I think those are two like very, very different emails. I've learned a little bit from working with Sean from Producer Dojo. And he's very good at CCing artists on those emails and kind of teaching them through just being like, here's how we have success at this label. Maybe you can like copy, paste, and edit appropriately for your future endeavors, which is awesome. And just introducing and helping make some of those contacts is like, nobody does that. So big shout out to Sean for that's like money can't buy that kind of value of being introduced by someone who already has a relationship there. Absolutely amazing. And I love that.
Shout out Sean.
Amen. I can attest to that real quick because I just did my own first tour. I was telling you the other day, and I actually had a really, really high success rate at places I reached out to. Nice. I think I reached out to like 7 places and got 6 yeses, which is insane to me. But it's because nearly everybody, I think everybody except Bend, Oregon, I had some sort of connection. It was like my homegirl was like, yo, I want you to play Portland, and you're already in a group chat with the dude that runs it. And then I was like, wow, now we have a date. Any place else? And they're like, yes, here, we just started 2 more group chats with Eugene and Ashland. And then from there, it was like reaching out to the dude in Arcata that it was like, oh, hey, we actually have all these mutual connections. And then my other homie was like, hey, I just put you in contact with the guys in Shasta. So like you're saying, that personal connection that, if anybody can do that for you. And again, if you can do this for anybody, like that kind of, like you said, showing the unconditional love where there's no immediate direct payoff is such a big thing. You can like change somebody's life off of that. And, there's no immediate direct like payback for that, but there is that like undying gratitude that will come back around somehow. And, if not, it's okay because all you did was like alley-oop somebody a contact.
For sure. I think to anyone who's really young in their pursuit of doing this, I would offer the cautionary tale, in addition to everything you just said, Luke, that you can't redo your debut of meeting someone. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's very important to ask for help from your friends and colleagues and people that mutual contacts, because I think that, like you said in your experience, Luke, you'll have a super high success rate if someone introduces you who already has that relationship. However, if your product or your professionalism or what you're bringing to the conversation is not quite at the same par as the person that introduced you, and you come across as a bit of a scrub, which I definitely have in the past, it can be really hard to overcome that first perception. So I would just, like I said, as a cautionary tale to people that are like, oh, I'm going to hit up all my friends that know all these people and ask them to connect me. Yes, you should do that, but you should just make sure that your pitch is like airtight and that all your ducks are in a row, because you can't meet someone for the first time twice.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like having something that looks and sounds really good on the internet for people to like vet you is important. Yeah. Like I definitely got a lot of the bookings who were like, oh yeah, I checked out your SoundCloud or your Spotify and I like this music that you're playing. So, okay. Yeah. You know,
or just ask the person that you're asking for the connection. Like, hey, do you think it's the right time for me to get connected with this person? Can you vet me before you know? And people will probably do that anyways. But if you have that dialogue with them, I don't know. We're not all West Coasters here, but West Coast peeps are like notoriously passive aggressive and can't ever give anyone bad news. So it would be, you would give someone an easy out if you ask them that question that way. Hey, do you think I'm ready for this opportunity? Be honest. My feelings aren't going to get hurt. For them to be like, yes or no. And then you can in an open dialogue, be like, can you give me like 3 things to work on? And then just be like, dope, I'll hit you back in next quarter and maybe I'll be ready in then.
Dude, that is so big. And especially like growing up in Seattle, like I was sheltered from anyone that was direct and honest about anything that wasn't positive. And it's like, it's been like a really game-changing thing to learn, like, no, positive or negative, be open and honest. And if you fuck something up, like be honest about the situation and that you fucked it up and take it on the chin. And then lo and behold, that person's actually like not that mad. And they're like totally working with you to like fix the thing or like whatever it is, any situation, like just be honest. And if you're feeling weird or awkward about something in the situation, like most of the time, literally just speak it. Just be like, I feel a little weird because like I don't really know what I'm doing here, and like this and this, and be like, oh cool, so like let me teach you this thing. And it's like I'm always shocked about how much people are willing to like help with something like in that situation, or like how much better it goes when you're honest about the thing that like you're currently holding back, right? Like it seems so simple, but like it's hard to do in practice. So you should.
It's a weird characteristic of West Coast, and I've heard it described as like on the West Coast we pretend to be nice, but on the East Coast they pretend to be mean.
I heard it once. Funny. Similar thing. There was like on the East Coast they're kind but not nice, and on the West Coast we're nice but not kind. I don't know if I fully agree with that, but I definitely feel the underlying sentiment there. It's like there's something to being too polite to where you're not actually giving somebody what they need to like grow. Yeah. And you know, I'm actually practicing that. I've had a couple interactions with people who either like want to work with me or whatever, who've like reached out on email or on text and like overspilled huge amounts of personal information that were like so unnecessary for our conversation and super unnecessary for that early in a relationship, that I'm like, hey, look, I need to explain to you why this is not a good look. I'm not mad, but I also need you to know that you should not ever send that email to anybody.
Time and a place. Time and a place.
So these are all great. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's probably time for us to start wrapping up soon. I know that our illustrious Tesco has another engagement to get to pretty quick here, so I don't want to keep him past his time.
It's not as cool as this one, but
there's another one.
So I just want to make sure that we give Torbjorn a chance to like, you know, say final thoughts, wrap up for a few minutes, and shout out the socials for people to follow you, man.
Yeah. Just my final thoughts on kind of what we were saying. I think we kind of delved into like how to deal with reaching out to for like professional career opportunities through someone you know. And I think on the other side of that, something we didn't touch on is like cold calling etiquette. And I'll give just like 2 quick tips that I've learned is if you're cold calling a venue or cold calling a promoter, I think being very concise and just asking for what you want up front. Here's what we are. Here's what the date is that we need. Here's any other pertinent details, and just make sure they never have to scroll through that email, because as soon as it's enough words for them to scroll, they're like probably gonna just not even read it. Be very direct. Here's what I need. Here's why I need it. Here's who I am. On the inverse of that, reaching out to cold calling people for PR things like blogs or getting your concert listed or album reviews or these kind of things. What I've found in my personal experience is, rather than being really direct and to the point, and here's our links and here's the description and we want a blog write up or whatever, hit someone up a little more personally. Here's who I am. Here's how I know you. Would it be okay if I sent you these things? And then wait for them to respond. Because I think that people that blog and are a little bit more on the lifestyle or the publication side, especially of music and arts, are there because they're like fans and normal people first that wanted to take that experience further. And I think that not everyone wants to see behind the curtain of like the music industry or the entertainment industry. And so I think having a little bit of that softer blow of meeting people in those areas that you don't personally know yet. Would it be okay if I sent you my album? Would it be okay if I sent you our tour dates? I think that will get you a lot farther than on the venue promoter side of just being like, you get 100 of these a day, so here's the date, and can we get in line for that date, please?
Amen.
That's incredible advice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So many gems, bro. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, this episode in total has been chef's kiss.
Dude, I'm glad
yeah.
we got to do a round 2. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man, me too. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, bro. Anytime, man. And bro, thanks for coming out to the show last week, man. That was hella fun to see you, get to fucking rock with you out there.
Yeah, man, it's always good seeing you, bro.
Yeah, buddy. All right, man. Want to shout out your socials?
Yes. beatsbytor.com, at beatsbytor, TOR, everywhere. The Nordwest EP featuring DJ Abilities on the lead single Froze. That song comes out May 17th. The whole EP drops at the hometown show in Tacoma, Washington on May 26th. And all the tour dates are on my website, beatsbytor.com. We got Nuris and Patru coming with us from Hawaii, and it's going to be a blast. Big ass AV show with lights and dancers and painters, and I couldn't be more excited about it. And I hope that you will come catch us on tour.
Yeah. All right. Then we give everybody a piece.
Yes. Can I ask for one favor real quick from y'all?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to switch back to regular old computer audio. And if maybe it doesn't want to let me click on this.
Well, we gotta do something special. I love it.
Dude, yeah, this is a special
Oh,
moment.
wait, hold on here. I think I can just do this way, actually. What I was going to ask is if you guys could just, either one or all of you, just be like, Human Music Podcast episode with Torbjorn, and I'll just like literally film my laptop and then drop this on my Insta.
We'll let Luke do the words, and I'll do crowd noise.
All right, cool.
I got you on the crowd noise too.
Say when.
All right. Whenever you're ready, buddy.
Yo, it's the Human Music Podcast with Torbjorn. Come check us out.
Oh my god, holy fucking shit. What the fuck? So sick.
And check him out on tour, baby. Nordwest coming soon.
Should probably do it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that was fun. Yeah, man. And to close out our thing, we give him a piece. Everybody, and a peace among worlds. All right.
Yeah.
I like it.
What's up, humans? Thank y'all so much for being here. Truly appreciate you. Thanks to Tor for being on here. He's wonderful. Love that dude. Make sure to check out beatsbytor.com to see when he's coming through your area. He mentioned him on the episode. You probably figured out if he is, but make sure to go see him. I'll be there at the Tacoma date and the Seattle date probably too. And And yeah, check out his song of the week, Froze, which, you know, drops very soon as of me recording this. And I got some links down below for that. Support our sponsors like Spice It Up Percussion and Foley Pack that Porch and I did. It's got over 2,000 percussion loops and one shots and 50 rack instruments, so you can really spice up your drum tracks. And it's all producerdj.com right there to buy, so go on and cop that. Also support Tesco's Patreon if you want some you know, track feedback, private lessons from the man himself, or you can join the whole Producer Dojo community too, from like free classes on Dojo TV, like this podcast and much more, or get some ill.Gates workshops, or you can sign up for a whole coaching program with Dojo MAX. And yeah, man. Also, you know, not 100% sure on this, but there's a chance that we're going to be dropping some of the older episodes. I mean, damn, we're at 136 already. We're thinking about putting some of the older episodes inside of maybe like a Patreon paywall kind of vibe like that. So if you got any you really want to go check, man, make sure you go run up them old ones, show your friends before we maybe take them away for a while. But nothing sure on that. And either way, love y'all so much. Thanks for being with us on this journey, and peace among worlds, buddies.